I am going to be recording this. It will be posted. Not sure where yet, but if you give me 2 or 3 days, we should have links available. If you want to turn your camera off, feel free. If you want to turn your microphone off, feel free. Francesca and Deb will be helping me monitor the chat, so they will keep an eye out for questions. I think that's all the housekeeping questions. I will go ahead and get started with everything. So Bill Godding and Ryan Leong and Stefan Reinecke have been kind enough to talk about their experiences and share their expertise and knowledge about channel swimming and the multiple channels that they've done multiple times. They are very well known in the open water swimming community and have been gracious enough to share their time with us today. So I will let them take it away. They have a slideshow for us and some stories along the way. And I will let them share their knowledge. So it's all you guys.
You know,
Bill, I can see you, but you're on mute, so.
Bill, you're muted, so you can talk all you want, Bill. Bill put this slideshow together, and it follows a format. Why don't we go to the first slide, Deb? The next slide, because it's one of the more. And the reason I'm talking about this is because it's rules, and as everybody knows, I have a law practice, so rules are important to me. These are the channel swimming rules, and these rules come from a variety of sources, but if you're interested in knowing all the rules, you go to the Marathon Swimmers Association, or Federation rather, MSF, and there is a detailed rule book. And I will be candid, some of the rules I understand, some of the rules I don't like, but these are the rules that they follow for open water swimming. Does that mean you have to follow these rules when you do your channel? No, it doesn't. But if you want to do a channel that other people will recognize as a channel, if you want to get it listed on the websites that exist for channels, then you need to follow these rules. And it's good to know them. They're not complicated. They are not particularly onerous for any of us that are doing swimming. But they are in place. There's one rule that Bill doesn't list that we don't follow in Hawaii, but is on the rules, and that is you can't wear GPS watches. And I don't want to get into a long discussion about that because I've had that with some of the folks on the Marathon Swimmers Federation panel, and I've accused them of being Luddites, but that's a whole other argument. So these are the basic rules. And the basic rules are no drafting, no wetsuits, no fins. You're basically doing it on your own. You can't stop and grab onto the boat. Those are the basic rules that I follow and that we all should at least aspire to follow if you want to have a legitimate channel swim. Boys?
No, I'll just continue on that slide and Steph. And if you have a fantastic first crossing of one of the channels, you decide you'd like to go back and swim the other way, we call that making the turn. And basically when you get to shore, you have 10 minutes in which you can be given things like food, sunscreen, and so forth. You have to apply it yourself. No one can touch you. And then you have to get in the water and start swimming again. So there have been a handful of double crossings of Ao and I think Pailolo and maybe Kalohi. I don't know if it's Kalohi's had a double or not, but there's been a handful of double cross. No Kalohi? No Kalohi. Stefan will be the first. So there's been a handful of double crossings. So if you want to do something like that and really challenge yourself, that's a little bit, those are some of the additional rules that go along with the doubles.
And that 10-minute rule is not something we made up. That's like an international rule. So when people do even crazier swims, like a double English channel, they have 10 minutes and they have to start back. So ours are a little bit shorter, but that's the rule, 10 minutes. It's not much time.
And Bill actually escorted someone on a double channel a few years back, and she took exactly 10 minutes, right, Bill?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So.
And when who's the girl who did the 3 channels?
Sarah Thomas.
Becca Mann.
Rebecca.
She did our 3, Maui, Molokai, Lanai. 10 minutes was all she was on each island before she kept going. So pretty tough.
Yeah, it's an important rule in the process. And once again, these all derive from the English Channel rules, actually, and they're all based upon. So there's a lot of debate about the rules and about changing them, but we basically follow. And in Hawaii, we actually are pretty loose about a couple of things, but we follow the same basic rules everybody follows everywhere else in terms of what you can wear and what you can do. And I think of particular importance to us in Hawaii because so many of us swim as groups. We do what was called a solo, a group solo, or a tandem solo. Is that you got to be really careful not to draft. It's just really easy to get behind someone, and you have to make a conscious effort to move out of the way.
Francesca, I see your question down there. That's a good one. Let us get to the next slide, then we'll go through the different channels we have. I think there's 9 of them, so we'll get to that in just a second. But
next slide.
Deborah, yep, we go to the next slide. This is Bill's baby right here. Bill likes the verification form. Bill,
no, you can swim that channel, but if you'd like to be recognized for it and listed on the official Hawaii, Swimming Association, you must submit this verification form. And it's very basic information. The good thing here in Hawaii is your boat captain is considered the official observer. He's signing this form saying, I witnessed that you did this. Whereas if you were doing the English Channel, you have to hire an official observer, and that is his job. He does nothing else. So we don't do that in Hawaii. You don't have to pay somebody, but your boat captain is your official observer, and he'll sign the form, and then we submit it, and your name gets put on the list, which you can go online and see everybody who has swum our channels.
And it's not inexpensive. I had an observer from my failed Tahoe attempt. And I want to say it was $400 or $500 for the observer. So it's not an insignificant expense.
Yeah, we're fortunate here that we haven't. That's not something that we do. The boat captain can do that, so that is definitely a nice thing.
And that actually leads into the next slide. And these are the 4 topics we could talk.
Yeah, essentially, we'll talk about these next 4 topics in the upcoming slides about the 9 Hawaiian channels, which one to pick when you're considering one, if you're swimming one, what it takes training-wise, the cost and logistics of putting together a channel attempt, and of course, everyone's favorite, the critters and the dangers, and basically the things that go along, or the risks that go along with channel swimming. So, Deb, could we go to the next slide?
Hey, Ryan, as we go to the next slide, I wanted to put another comment back on the verification form, and Bill will say this. This form is important. The guy who holds the record for the Kaiwi channel, you'll notice his name isn't listed on the Hawaii Swimming Association site because he never turned in his verification form.
Yeah.
So, even though he's got the fastest time ever, he's not listed on the what might be considered the official site. So I warn you that, or not warn you, I caution you that you want to make sure that this paperwork gets taken care of. I'm sorry, we can go back to the channels now.
Yeah, if you're going to put in the hard work to do the swim and do it legitimately, then definitely do the paperwork and get yourself recognized. But so these are the 9 channels that are commonly and some uncommonly swum. But the first 3, A'ao, Pailolo, and Kalohi, are the Maui Triangle. So A'ao is Lanai to Maui, Pailolo is Maui to Molokai, Kalohi is between Molokai and Lanai. And all of those are around 9-ish miles, so around 15K. They're very doable, they're very approachable, they are a great first channel. And then beyond that, we have some others that presents some more challenges, like Kalakahi, which is between Kauai and Niihau, which is about 17 miles. And then the Koho'olawe to Maui one there are some challenges in that it's a shorter channel, but getting access to either land or leave from Koho'olawe is challenging. We haven't figured out a way to do it yet. And trust me, we've been trying. And then Koho'olawe to Lanai, I think Bill is one of the few that has done that one. Ta'iwi Channel is one of the Ocean 7, so that's one of the 7 channels that you have to swim and complete to be considered an Ocean 7 swimmer, along with like the English Channel and a number of others. And then Alinui Haha is Big Island to Maui. Only 4 people have done that. And then if anyone here is overly ambitious, you have Oahu to Kauai, and no one can really pronounce it, and no one's really swum it before either. So the only one, well, it's true, but there's only been one actual swim that has crossed that channel, and it was done via relay. I think it was 6 swimmers, was it, with Linda Kaiser and a handful of others? Is that correct?
Mike Spalding.
Yes.
Mike Spalding. So yeah, so it was one relay made it across with 6 swimmers, and I forget the time. It was close to 48 hours, I want to say. It was a long swim.
Plus, only I think 3 or 4 people have even attempted to do that channel. It's brutal.
Yeah. Let me make a comment about Kalakahi too. It says 17 miles. It's 17 miles. If you tried to get out of the water, you get cut to ribbons. You actually have to swim along the shoreline for almost a mile to get to any spot to land. So the 17 is a little bit of a misnomer in terms of the of the distance.
In reality, all of these channels should have asterisks by their distances, because you rarely swim a straight line on that. Like I'll something simple like I think I've done it right around that 15K, 16K mark, but I've also had and Steph and I think we were swimming that one where it was well over 21K, so it was 13 miles, and it has everything to do with the currents and conditions and things like that. So there's a lot of variabilities, but these are the Ao Pailolo and Kalohi are probably the easiest and most approachable ones when it comes to drawing a straight line between the islands and having some consistent conditions in which to swim. So almost one of those are almost always swimmable.
And people ask me my recommendation on what should be the first channel they should swim, and I tell them don't do the Deb Merwick approach. It shouldn't be Kaidi, but I recommend Ao to most people. And I recommend starting in Lanai and going to Maui. I've gone from Maui to Lanai. It's harder, I think. It's easier from logistics. It's harder. I think it's a much harder swim. So I think Ao is probably the most common channel for people to want to do. The number is huge in there, in part because they used to be part of the Maui Channel Swim. It used to be an individual event, but also I think it's a reflection that that's a good starter channel to do.
And
This is
then
Ryan
I see a
too.
question. Well, hold on. I see a question in here about were people stopped by jellies between Oahu and Kauai, and that was the case, I believe, every single time.
Yeah.
So that's a good question, Denise. Yeah, everyone was stopped by jellies, and if, for whatever reason, people encountered giant mats of jellyfish in that channel. So,
And in fact, I think we might see some of those a little bit later on.
Well,
cool. This is my favorite, Stefan.
It is your favorite, training. Ryan likes to train.
I do like to train. I actually like training more than the event itself. It's actually more fun to me, getting together a group of friends and going out for some long swims. But, Stefan, you want to start this off, or Bill?
Sure, I don't mind. It just, we say besides the pool, for most of us, it's been a problem this last year because we haven't had a pool to swim in for the most part. We've been forced to do training in the ocean with very little pool swimming. I still think that probably pools are a convenient tool to have if you're training for a channel because of the consistency in the water. But also, I'm a firm believer in doing a certain amount of interval training to give yourself that feeling of going harder and on an interval base. I think in any channel you get into, there are going to be times where you're going to have to use more effort, whether it's because of the current or whether it's just because, for some other reason. Usually it's a current or that you're involved with, but you're going to have to be able to be up in a variable pace. And I think training in the pool will help you do that better. And I think it's easier on your body too to be in the pool doing different things. We're lucky when Masters is running, and hopefully we'll be running again this fall, that you have that 5:30 a.m. workout too. So if you know you have a busy work day, you can still get in a good swim first thing in the morning.
Just don't do all pool training. You got to be out there in some of the rougher conditions that you're most likely going to have when you do a channel swim.
Yeah, absolutely agree with you. And then, concentrating on the, the distance and the time in the water is equally as important as well. A lot of times everyone has these fancy GPS watches now where they get stuck on these numbers and exactly how much they need to do, where sometimes you just need to be in the water, go out for a 2 or 3 hour swim versus focusing on, I need to get 3 miles or 5 miles or something like that. So time in the water is super important. And I also think time in the water on consecutive days is very important as well. For some of these shorter channels, like the ones around Maui that are 15K, it's nice to be able, if you're training for one of these, be able to go out on any given weekend and do a 10K swim and not feel completely trashed. If you can get yourself to that point, then I would say you have a very good chance at being able to be physically ready to do one of these channels. Of course, we have somebody on the call who basically disproves everything that we're talking about with training with Deb, but there's other ways to do it as well. You don't need to do a ton of the distance, but I know for me, it's a confidence thing. If I train and I know I'm trained and I'm ready for it, that's one less variable that I have to think about or worry about, because I know I'm physically capable of making the distance. So therefore I put my time into the training, and that helps me out and kind of checks off one of those boxes when it comes to, potential variables there. So Stephen, Bill, anything else?
Bill? I want to go down to the blue line for just a second about practicing with your goos, your blocks, and everything else. A lot of our swims are going to do in locations where you can't feed with fluids. One of the reasons I swim at Ala Moana is because I will do a swim there and I'll stop at 3K and drink some fluid and keep going. And I actually like doing some of my longer swims there. I know Ryan hates it, and I forced him one day to do a 20K swim there. But I like doing it there because then I can practice my feeding too. Whereas if we go on the North Shore and we go out for a 10 or 15K swim, unless we take someone along with us on a jet ski or something else, you don't get to practice your feeding. And I'm convinced that anything over about 10 or 12K is about the most your body can do without getting some kind of a fluid into you. So, you could do it off of Kaimana, or you could do it off the west side if you don't mind going back and forth there and coming into shore, getting fluid. But I think practicing with fluids is really important if you want to see how your body's going to react. And I just think Ala Moana is really good for that, personally.
Yeah, I just like it when Stefan's right, but I'll have to agree on that to some extent. Especially the practicing the feeding and that sort of thing. It's one of those things where you don't want to be out in the channel and that's the first time you're actually trying a goo or a gel or something like that. You want to be well practiced with these things along the way. So anytime you have the ability to do that, that's great. Another option that I've been seeing people do too is when they swim with those swim buoys, the little floaties that drag behind you for safety and visibility and that sort of thing. A lot of these now are containing these waterproof pouches, or a little thing where you can tuck something in there. So you could take a little bit of water, you could take a gel with you in there and just kind of drag it behind you. And that kind of opens up a lot of possibilities as well. Michelle Simmons, yes. Electrolyte fluid, absolutely. I know that's one of the things for you as far as cramping and that sort of thing. But yes, I treat it like I do any endurance race of say 5-6 hours, something like that, if you're looking at some of these shorter channels, you want to approach it the same type of way as far as with the calorie intake, and then at the same time with the sodium intake through your drinks and that sort of thing. So yes, you definitely want to practice that type of nutrition.
Hey, can we drop down to slide 11?
I saw
One more, Stefan, there's another question in there about any tricks to alleviate salt tongue.
About what?
salt tongue.
Any tricks to alleviate salt tongue. So
Oh,
Yes. If it's going to be a longer swim, at least I've tried it, and I know other people have. If you have a little bottle of scope, you take that scope, rinse it, and it seems to really work. And then you have nice minty fresh breath for the next hour. But it does seem to help take care of the tongue, in my opinion.
I agree with Bill. It does
Those
work.
are for pretty long swims normally.
and I would also, there's a couple of other things there too. What Bill was saying about scope is nice because you want ones that have lower alcohol content, because something like Listerine that has a whole bunch of alcohol in it can be quite harsh if your tongue is raw and your mouth is raw.
Yeah.
Something
Yes.
else I read recently that I've never done, but I think would have some merit for a really long swim, is using coconut oil to coat the inside of your mouth and even nasal passages, that kind of thing, just to put a layer of protection in there. I think that's what Cam Bellamy was using when he did that ridiculous swim somewhere in the Barbados or something like that. He was using that, and that helped him a lot, and it makes sense to me. So those are some good questions. And then salt lips on that, zinc oxide for sunscreen, and also to protect the lips from the salt, I think should work.
Yeah. You know, we talk about nutrition. I actually use honey stingers, and I'm not plugging them. It's just, I just happen to like the flavor. But the other thing about it is the honey coats my tongue and coats my mouth, the gels. And so I feel like that helps with me with the salt mouth.
And I don't recommend it, but I always chew gum when I swim. So I know a handful of other people that I don't know if I recommend, but it does, again, just having something different than the salt water in my mouth, that flavor, that taste. I don't swim without it, but I would caution against that.
Actually, we just go down to 7. That's fine with me. 7.
I'm gonna watch these.
That one?
That was a great swim. This is just an aside, you know, train with friends when possible. We're going to talk about a little bit about the costs of training and everything else. I mean, part of what's cool about channel swimming for me, and this was the year we did Kaiwi back in whatever year that was, but we had a group of swimmers that were willing to do crazy stuff with us. So one morning we had Bill and Chris Gardner agreed to take us along in Ryan's boat, which the engine didn't work at the beginning. And
It worked.
Eventually.
Yeah.
And we went for a swim. We started in Hawaii Kai at the boat harbor in Hawaii Kai. We didn't know what we were doing. And we swam out the channel and swam down to the Alawai one day. It was just crazy. It took us forever because the currents were terrible and everything else, but it was just fun. And, you know, you get a group of guys and actually only Mark and Ryan and I were doing the Kaiwi channel that year. Tim Marr wasn't doing it that year. Marcus, who's in the red suit, this was his first long swim ever. And he just said, he said, what the heck, I'll go out with you guys. Look how young he looks in that picture too. And then Steve Manalia just joined in too. We all swam on and used Ryan's boat, and we ended up with huge seas, but it's just fun to train with your friends. And we actually burned all of our friends out by the end of the summer. Nobody was training with us, is my recollection. Ryan, what was yours?
Yeah, it's true. It thinned out quite a bit, but it really is good to train with friends for a number of reasons: motivation, accountability, all those things, but also to safety. There's lots of things that can go wrong in the ocean. Chances are they won't, and chances are if you're considering a channel swim, you'd probably be very proficient out there all by yourself. But if something does go wrong, there's not a lot of outs. So having people to swim with is pretty important, at least at least to myself, and I know the people that I swim with, you know, we go out in a group, we stay in a group, we make it a point that we don't drop people to make sure that everyone stays together on that, because the safety aspect of it is super important.
Can drop down. Look at that. Look at those conditions.
They look like today.
And I think, Ryan, is that you and me?
Yeah, that's us and Jake.
And Jake, and those are the conditions we had for the Kaiwi channel.
Yeah.
It was like a swimming pool. It really, for most of our swim, was just like that. Some days you get lucky. Go to the next slide. Some days you don't get lucky.
Was this Mark Tan?
I don't know, Bill. Who is this?
I'm not sure, to be honest with you. It might be Mark and Steven.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think this is their Kalakahi
Yeah.
attempt when they got between Kauai and Niihau, where it started out innocently enough because you're in the shadow of I think Mount Waialeale on Kauai, and it just kind of casts a shadow out there. And for the longest time, you swim in this nice smooth water, and then once you're out of that channel, there's shadow, something like this happens. So you can encounter all sorts of conditions out there, and they change pretty quickly. The main thing is you just keep swimming.
Yeah, keep swimming. We've run into conditions probably not quite this bad, actually, in the Maui County channels before. It can change pretty rapidly. So you can do all this planning in advance. And I use Red Windy and I use Blue Windy, which are two apps that, you know, for the iPhone. Red and Blue are two, they're both called Windy, but they're different companies. I use the people that came and spoke to the Waikiki Swim Club a few years ago, Pac Ios. I use their charts. I use all that stuff, and this kind of stuff still happens. And at some point, you just got to say, "Oh well, I'm going to try."
Yeah, and I'll also say too that in that slide where the conditions are really challenging and sloppy looking, it's actually way worse for the people on the boat than it is for the people in the water. You can navigate these types of conditions while you're swimming, and you notice it for sure, but you're rarely going to put yourself in a position where you're swimming straight into these types of conditions and these waves. Typically you'll be swimming down swell, or it'll be side swell or something like that. So you won't notice it nearly as much as your boat. And a lot of times something might be swimmable, but it might not be safe because the boat and your escort aren't going to be able to take care of you or to watch over you correctly. So just something else to consider on that. What was the next slide? Oh, the kayak support. Bill's been participating in a couple of Zoom meetings on this. So Bill, you want to talk about this?
This is a picture from the double ow swim. That's Meredith Novak swimming. And we had a crew on the boat. There was 3 of us. We were taking turns doing the kayaking because it was a long way. And the only thing on this, you might notice there's a little rope kind of off the back end that was dragging a shark shield for those who want to use it. But she had really nice conditions. If you get something like this, that's ideal.
A lot of the boat captains, if you're doing Kaiwi, will actually offer, for a fee, of course, kayak support. They'll provide them to you, so you don't have to necessarily recruit your own. Ryan's brother-in-law is the very best kayaker, along with Chris Gardner. They've given us great help over the years. They have been really good. Of course, Bill and Hudson Slay were our kayakers for our first Kaiwi attempt, and they did a great job also, keeping us online.
I'll say
kayaker is your eyes, or are your eyes.
Yeah, I'll say this too. There's been a lot of swims that have met some challenges because the kayaker wasn't prepared. So the kayaker is, if you choose to have a kayaker on your swim, which I would highly recommend for some of the longer channels, you're going to want to make sure that kayak is proficient. So, or that kayak is proficient and they can go a long distance, because it is a long time to sit in that position and they're battling the elements. They have to feel like an athlete. They need to be able to paddle that distance. So that's something where it's something you're going to want to consider early on in your planning process, and not just do it a knee-jerk reaction later on, like seeing a buddy who can paddle a scupper a little bit and then ask them to come with you into a channel. Because when the conditions get rough, the channel goes long, you're going to want somebody who's experienced and knows what they're doing. So unless you have somebody super proficient in it, I think I would recommend working with your boat captain to secure a kayaker that they're confident with and working with as well.
Bill doesn't know anything about feeding, by the way. He doesn't feed on these channels.
That's Denise Webb on the right, Lori Foster.
The funny story is, when I first time I ever did a channel with Bill was, I want to say 2014. And we went with another guy, and Pat calls me up and says, Stefan, make sure Bill feeds. Make sure he drinks more than one bottle this time. Because Bill will go all the way across the channel on a half a bottle. This kind of guy.
Yeah, that's pretty much what you would call a kahi as well.
Basically, yeah.
As you can see, you just attach a line to the bottle. That way you can throw it out to the swimmer. They can drink and then just let it go. They don't have to throw it back into the boat. The boat support will pull it in. And you can attach goos or whatever kind of feeding to the bottle with rubber bands. It works pretty good.
So this is, I got a little prop here, but this is basically how I set up my bottles. It's just a regular water bottle, rubber band in the skinny part. I've got a gel tucked in one side, and I ask to have bites tucked in the other side. And then I have a choice as to what I want to eat. And then I tuck the wrapper back underneath the rubber band when it goes back to the boat. And of course, the bottle has your water or your liquid or Gatorade or whatever electrolyte solution you have. So I find this to be super easy. I've seen all sorts of different ways that people do it, but what you have to do is find what works best for you and what's hopefully efficient for you.
Some people really rush through their feeds. We don't. And we just, as a matter of course, have it. It drives Bill nuts when we're sitting there and he says, come on, guys, let's go. Come on, guys, let's go. I'm just not in a rush kind of guy for these kinds of things. I like to get my nutrition in, maybe have a couple words with my friends. But it's up to you, and you should be compatible that way. I mean, everybody should be on the same wavelength. The bigger the group, but be in mind, the bigger the group, the longer the process is going to take. And particularly if you only have one or two people feeding the bigger groups. So this is a process, and you got to be flexible about what's going to happen when you're doing it. The other reminder is you don't litter. When you open up your goos, even that little metal thing at the top, you should tuck that into your swimsuit and not leave it in the ocean. Though Ryan once left a pair of goggles in the ocean.
I did. I thought I was going to die too, but that's, when we did Molokai did our second attempt on that, we stopped for a feed, and I was feeding. It's in the middle of the night. It's pitch black. It's dark. We're eating. We're doing whatever we need to do, and all of a sudden I kick something, and I about jumped out of my skin, because anytime you guys are in the water, if you're in Ala Moana, if you're in Kailua Pool, if you touch something that you're not expecting to touch, it kind of freaks you out a little bit. So I kicked something and basically jumped out of my skin, but it turned out that I had somehow dislodged my goggles and my red blinking flashy light, and it had drifted down, and I had kicked it, and we watched it go down to the bottom. So, but I thought I was going to die in that 1 second right there. So things like that do happen. Eric and Deb asked questions about feeding intervals. I know for us, not Bill, but for us, Bill doesn't feed and can just swim forever, but we prefer 30-minute intervals. We'll go probably the first two off the beach because you're well fueled already and you're ready to go at maybe 45 minutes. but then we'll go every 30. And every 30 allows you to feed twice an hour, obviously, but you don't have to cram a whole bunch of calories in. You can be you don't want to take a lot of food in anyways. It's maybe a gel, a couple of swigs of water or liquid, something like that. Then you're on your way. So you're looking like maybe 100, 150 calories, not a lot. But every 30 minutes you do that, you get about 300 calories an hour. You're consistent. Your blood sugar never drops too low if you're using gels because you're constantly replenishing. That seems to be a good interval for us. I mean, Stefan, Bill, either of you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I've been trying to push for going 45 minutes for the first 2 or sometimes even 3 feeds, because I feel like that we still have enough rhythm going, and we aren't depleting ourselves that badly in that first for that first period. But I'm perfectly happy at 30-minute feeds too. And mentally, 30 minutes is just about the time I start getting anxious anyway. So it works well.
30 minutes goes quick in the beginning, but boy, it can be long when you're tired and hungry and you're starting to get closer to the end, or you're several hours into it. That 30 minutes can't come soon enough. So it seems like a good interval for us.
Let's jump.
Oh, the fun part.
You know what's not in that list? The mandatory COVID test, the $150 test. I don't see that.
Not if you boat over.
Yeah.
Not if you boat over. This is assuming everyone's doing Kaiwi.
There you go.
I think everybody knows these are the general costs involved, but that helps a lot. If you have 2 or 3 swimmers, then you can all share cost of the boat and rental car and stuff like that. But yeah, if you're gonna do a channel, it's gonna cost you a few bucks, and there's no getting around that unless you know somebody that lives on the island that can put you up or something.
Yeah, channel swimming is not for the faint of wallet. I think you really need to kind of live with it. And I'll tell you, after failing at Lake Tahoe, where I spent thousands of dollars in total on that swim, failing is much more expensive than succeeding.
That's true. Did you guys, sorry, I need to plug my phone. It's kind of dying, but did you guys talk about the cost for the boats, at least for a shorter channel?
We haven't yet, no. And the prices have gone up with time. When Bill first started doing this, it was only $75 for a boat, because
they didn't have boats when he started doing it, though. I mean, it was
they didn't have motors on the boats when he started doing it.
So
you're looking probably now with the cost of the boat and with the tip to the boat, because the boat captain will bring along some people to help him. You're probably talking, or her, you're probably talking about $1,500 now for a boat for with the Maui County channels.
Yeah, for the short channels, if you're going to do Molokai, it's going to be between $3,000 and $5,000 for that boat support. But
Molokai is treated a little differently by a lot of them. A lot of the captains now do it by the hour, $250, $300 an hour, and that and it starts from when the boat leaves Oahu. So as the boat motors over, because it's their fuel costs, it's their time, it's everything else. So if you take 15 hours to swim Molokai plus another 3 hours for the boat to get over and situated and that sort of thing, you're looking at 18 hours at $300 an hour. It gets pretty expensive. So that's another reason to swim with friends. You can split the costs.
And we have an ongoing debate amongst ourselves about how many people you can have swimming at night safely. My opinion is you can have 3 people swimming at night safely, possibly 4. I don't think you can go above 4 people in the dark. Personally, that's just my sense of it. But there's no right or wrong answer to that. I don't think Ivan will take more than 3 people.
Yeah, I don't think he'll take more than 2. But this is, again, Stefan's referencing a channel where you're swimming at night, and the complexity of that increases significantly when it comes to safety and making sure all the swimmers are in where you expect them to be. But during the day, I mean, what have we had? Up to 7 swimmers for a single boat?
Well, and I think
So
when we did the triple with Steve, didn't we have 7 or 8?
yeah, we might have had 7 or 8. So it's doable with a larger group on that, but you just want to make sure that the group is compatible. So when it comes to training and training with your friends, you want to make sure that it's a compatible group, because if somebody's too fast, somebody's too slow, it's a really challenging thing to try and keep together over time. So being comfortable with the people that you swim with and confident in with them, that will make a big difference. But yes, if you have the right group, you can have multiples on there. And if you have 6 or 7 people sharing in the cost of one of these shorter channels at $1,500 for the boat and the crew, it becomes very reasonable.
Yeah.
But if you're doing it solo by yourself, it's obviously going to be much more costly. So if you have a handful, 2, 3, 4 people to help split the costs, I really think that's the way to go. Plus, it's a heck of a lot more fun.
Exactly. More fun. Way more fun.
Next.
Hey, Ryan,
Wow.
and Stefan, and we'll get to the next slide. I actually had a question about gear. You mentioned losing your goggles, Ryan. Are you allowed to have extra gear on the boat that you can have given to you if you lose gear? You know, goggles, ripped cap.
Yep. Yes. You can have extras that are on the boat. Like if you're doing something like a nighttime swim, you definitely are going to want clear goggles. And then as that becomes daylight, you're going to want to have your tinted goggles. So yes, you can have multiples on the boat, and it's always good to bring a second pair of everything, just in case one of those pieces fails. You know, you break a goggle strap, like you said, your swim cap rips, something like that. It's always good to have doubles.
Great, thanks.
Yeah. All those things. Let's go to the next slide. We can look at part of this. Sunscreen. You cannot have enough sunscreen. There's no such thing as too much sunscreen. Sunscreen is your friend.
Next.
And particularly if you're going to spend the entire day. Look at all that sunscreen on. Go to the next slide. Look at all that sunscreen on those people. They are filled with sunscreen. That's you just can't have enough. And there's all kinds of sunscreens, and you should experiment with the kinds you like. Zinc oxide is critical because it stays on, and it gives you a certain amount of protection. I'll tell you though, and I remember that day when we were all putting on that sunscreen like that, we still all got burnt. Every one of us. The sun was just so intense that day. Remember that, Ryan? He's on mute, so he's not going to remember. But I just have this distinct memory of the Zamatis brothers were on the boat with us, and both of them just got horribly burnt, even though they had tons of that zinc oxide on.
Yep, absolutely. And you want a mineral-based sunscreen more than anything else. These typical sport sunscreens that you can buy at Costco and that sort of thing, they don't last very long. I mean, they say they're rated for 80 minutes. I don't think it even lasts that long. So you're going to want something. The cheapest and the easiest to get is a tube of Desitin. It's 40% zinc, and that's going to offer you the best coverage over a long period of time. And that stuff is super challenging to both get on and off. So when you use something like zinc, if you're going to use it in your training swims because you're going to do a long training swim in the summer, get a pair of gloves. Get a whole bunch of gloves. Keep it in the trunk of your car and use that when you're putting it on, because anything you touch with that, it's damn near impossible to get off. So, but I think Desitin is probably the easiest thing to use. And then the other thing that I think we all kind of agree on this one is I don't know if anyone uses BioAstin, but BioAstin,
I do.
They make a claim of internal sunscreen. I swear there's some truth to that, and I really don't take any supplements. But this thing, this thing works. You know, when you're, for lack of better terms, ass up to the sun for hours on end, you're going to get burned. And this really makes a difference for me as far as getting burned and peeling and the after effects of the sun. So I highly recommend taking bioacid and taking a lot of it before a planned long swim.
Drop down one slide. This is what happens when you forget to put on lots and lots of sunscreen. Yeah, it just looks painful. It's just misery. And actually, Meredith was putting on sunscreen during the day. She was in the water. She did a double ow. I mean, she tough as nails, and she made it across. She was out there all day long.
You can see the cat mark, her goggles where they were, but she got a lot of sun that day.
Got a lot of sun that day. The other thing when you're doing these channels, besides that sunscreen, is lubrication. Lubing up. Vaseline, Body Glide. See the Gold Bond on the right-hand side? I swear it's made by the same people that do Body Glide. Don't quote me on this, but it feels exactly the same. Only it's about $5, $6 a stick, as compared to Body Glide, which I want to say is about 10 or 11 now. And then the Chafe Zone I've never used. Billy, you use that?
I've just used the Body Glide and the Gold Bond so far.
Yeah. And I use Vaseline still. And during the middle of your swim, we always have a Vaseline on board the boat that will, if you need it, you put it on. I actually, on our first Kaiwi attempt, I chafed really badly on my chest from some reason, where I was breathing to that side. So about every hour or 2 hours, I would just take a glob of Vaseline and just stick it on that spot so that I could make it through the swim, because otherwise it would have been ridiculously painful.
That's a picture of Forrest Nelson. He's from California. He's the only person to have done the Molokai Channel 3 times. So he's quite the swimmer.
Didn't he do it from Oahu to Molokai too?
Yeah, he's done one of the times was from Oahu to Molokai, which is very, very difficult. Only 2 people have done that. Yeah. Him and Harry Huffaker.
We said we talked about jellyfish, didn't we?
Yeah. I don't know how true these are. Some of you probably have tried them, but I've kind of skeptical about jellyfish protection from the sunscreen, but they do sell it. There it is.
I've never used it either. And Emily, I did see your question about whether or not Vaseline helps with the no-see-ums. And to be honest with you, I haven't been able to tell. I can't tell if it protects me or it makes them stick to me. So yeah, I'm really not sure what to tell you on that one. But yeah, it's the jellies and that sort of thing. That's one of those risks and variables that come with swimming a channel, and you just kind of have to set your mind to just be okay with getting stung, because chances are you will. But yeah, and I can.
Let's look at the next slide. Let's look at the next slide, because we see some examples of people getting stung. If you look closely,
you should have put Quinn's on here.
Yeah, Quinn's. Yeah, Quinn got it so badly off of Kauai. Penny Palfrey got those off of trying to make it to Kauai from Oahu. And Mike Spalding, I'm not sure where Mike got those.
That was also at the Kauai from the relay race, or the relay team. And everybody on that relay got stung. So, and they were just doing 1 hour intervals.
Well, some people may remember this, but our friend Linda Kaiser actually swallowed a jellyfish on her first Kaiwi attempt.
Yeah.
So they're out there. You can't avoid them. It happens, and you try and do the best, but there's just no way to avoid jellyfish stings. I don't know if anybody's come up with a formula yet. And my feeling is if it's possible, you keep swimming and try and hope that the salt water will help alleviate some of the pain with time. You can swear a little bit too. Every time I get stung, I stop and swear a little bit. And I'm pretty sure swearing helps make them feel better.
Yeah, Stefan swore a lot during the night when we were swimming Kaiwi, because we kept getting stung by jellyfish, and I would hear all sorts of curse words coming out of him. So it was highly entertaining. But the thing is, when you do put yourself in a position to swim a channel, chances are you've been out in the water quite a bit, and you will have encountered and felt jellyfish stings, and you kind of know how to handle them. So if you're not allergic to them, and you would probably know by now if you were, but if you're not allergic to them, the best advice is to take a second, recollect yourself, and just keep swimming. There's nothing you can really do about it, and you just got to keep going. But Deb, are you unmuted on this?
I am now, yeah.
Okay, awesome. Deb, tell your story. What you're about 6 miles out. I mean, yeah, it's kind of case in point, but if you don't mind sharing that, Deb.
Yeah, I was trying to swim through them, but and Ivan was trying to break up the jellyfish in front of us, and he was pointing them out how to swim around them, and I was getting stung like on my face, in the middle of my back, so I couldn't pull it off in the middle of my back, and then my legs and my feet. So I pulled them off, but I got to a point that my quads and my hamstrings just kind of seized up. So I just I couldn't swim because I was kind of in a seated position for a while. So I just kind of hung out because I kind of knew it would go away eventually. So Ivan just kind of, he had the boat there, and we kind of waited out, and I just tried to kind of slowly stretch out, my legs, and then just kind of started swimming again once I could, straighten my legs. But it is nice when you have a captain that can go ahead and tear up that, those man-o-war for you. And then you're still going to get stung, but they're not going to wrap you. But yeah, but at least it didn't go on for very long, and it was during the day. So that was nice. And then you just swim, you swim it out. But yeah.
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 It's easier to swim out now that we're sitting here on dry land too.
Yeah.
Our next picture. Hobbs. Nice little Hobbs.
So,
Hobbs is the most evil beast ever invented. Cookie cutters.
Oh, he's not. He's fun.
No, he's fine. I'm talking about the
yeah.
cookie cutters on the right.
Well, this is something you have to accept when you do a channel swim, that these are critters out there. Obviously, a tiger shark is pretty dangerous, but we've never had a swimmer get whacked by one. We've had them chased out of the water. The swimmers had to get out of the water, which was probably a smart decision. The cookie cutter, unfortunately, we've had 4 swimmers been hit by a cookie cutter shark. And like that picture of the tuna with a cookie cutter bite, that's what it looked like when it got them. I didn't put those pictures in because it wasn't appropriate. But you're only going to have to worry about that shark if you're swimming at night, because he's going to come up. He stays down very deep during the daylight and comes up to feed at night. But that little tiny shark. He attacks the tunas, the dolphins, the seals, and you've probably seen their wounds if you've ever seen them out swimming on the. Nothing.
And they don't. Yeah, they don't possess the normal. I don't what anatomy of other sharks where they would be sensitive to an electrical barrier like a shark shield. So that has absolutely no impact on them whatsoever. They wouldn't even feel it. So they're evil little bastards, and they just shoot straight up from the bottom, grab what they want, and disappear. And there's really they're a maximum of 24 inches. And I know I talked to Ivan, who's Deb's boat captain for his Kaiwi channel, mine and Stefan's as well. He had one of the swimmers that was bitten, and the swimmer was treading water during a feed. And Ivan said he watched this tiny little thing, couldn't have been more than 9 inches long, just shoot up, attach to the back of the swimmer's left shoulder, spin around, grab a hunk of meat, and disappear. And just like that, in a split second, swim was over, and they were in emergency mode and trying to get him out of the water and to shore. So that's definitely one of the risks, but you're only like Bill was saying, you're only really going to encounter that if you're swimming at night. So if you can avoid the night swimming, then these shorter channels are definitely daytime channels. So you shouldn't have any issues. And the other sharks like the silkies and the tigers and that sort of thing, I like to think in the middle of the channel they're not really looking to feed, and they will normally leave you alone. But sometimes they get a little overly curious, and you just need to, I guess, determine what your comfort level is with them. And some people are more comfortable than others, and so we avoided one PEB channel.
Let's go to the next slide. These are some of the things people use. Well, actually, the shark deterring suit nobody in Hawaii uses because those would not be legal for your swim. The other devices in Hawaii are okay. The shark spray, I think, is very amusing. When we saw the tiger shark in Kaiwi when we got chased out, Chris Gardner hands Ryan that can of shark spray and says, "Spray him, spray him." and we really didn't know what to do.
I think you spray it on yourself.
Literally,
not the shark.
Supposedly, this is supposed to be putrefied shark blood, and they don't like it. But he hands me this can after this shark has been chasing us for several hours, and everyone's all in a frenzy, including myself, not thinking straight. And I just remember I'm chasing after this shark underwater with a spray can, depressing the button and trying to spray this shark repellent at him. And I got a few feet down, and I thinking, what the hell am I doing? So I got on the boat and got out of there. But I don't know.
It was a tough decision getting on the boat and quitting. We were 7 hours, well more over halfway through our swim. We'd finished the nighttime. It'd been a beautiful evening. All of us felt great, but that shark just kept coming closer and closer. I remember the first time I saw it, I said, "Oh, that's a tiny little shark." And that's because it was about 30, 40 feet below us. By the time it got close, it was the length of the kayak and wider than the kayak. It was within an arm's reach of Ryan. So,
just note, the shark shield is something you're not going to wear. You're going to drag that on a kayak. It's too big and heavy to put it on your ankle. But the two below it, you can wear. You can wear on your ankle or your wrist. And if you makes you feel better, that's great. I don't know about a magnet repelling a shark.
There is another electronic one that we've used that I actually have used that I don't mind, called the E-Force. And that's got an electronic pulse too. All I'll tell you is that when we did Kalakahi and Calvin the Silky joined us, I had one of those E-Forces on, and he got within 10 feet of me. So whether they kept him from getting within 10 feet of me, I can't tell you. But the Calvin the Shark certainly came by, and he was with us for 7, 8 hours. So, and we had at least 2 or 3 of the E-Forces with us going. So he never got closer than about 10 feet to any of us, but he was with us for a long time.
Yeah, ultimately, I think these are for peace of mind more than anything else. So if it makes you feel better, go for it. Absolutely use it. But other than that, I don't know.
Next.
Sweet success.
No, cool.
That's Ryan and Stefan
Linda.
when they finished Molokai Channel. And, Linda Kaiser there to greet them.
Yeah, Linda was our mentor. She gave Ryan and I lots of very good advice along the way, and not just about Kaiwi, but just kind of in general about channel swimming and about swimming in the ocean. She had quite a following of people, and we were lucky enough to fall within her sphere and get some of her insights. She's the only person so far that's done them all, and she even actually did Koholavi before it was against the rules. So she was the bomb, no doubt about it.
And for those of you guys looking to take on a channel, there is something exceptionally satisfying after swimming for hours on end to finally stand up and walk up the beach in your own power. It's a neat thing and something you work hard for. It should be celebrated. So, I hope you guys all have a chance to take that on and get that feeling.
Because you may see this. Next slide. That was from a channel swim I did with the kids from Alea. And there's a couple of the high school kids are in the picture you could see, and that shark, that whale was out there in the middle of the hour on that swim, kind of having fun. Cool thing to see. Or you may see this. Let's go back to the whale. I like the whale better. I like seeing that. You know, we wanted to talk today, and Deb asked us to talk so we could just share some ideas. I mean, obviously, we've just kind of brushed over the fine points of this today, and we probably created more questions than we've answered. I know a lot of you. I mean, I see a lot of you around, and you certainly feel free to ask, because part of the cool thing about channel swimming is that we're kind of all in this together, and we're sharing a lot of information, and we're happy to do it, and we'll do it on the beach. We'll do it, you know, almost any time. And I know Ryan is a fountain of information, and Bill, people literally reach out to Bill from around the world, asking him questions about the Molokai channel. We had a friend from Colorado came out recently, Sarah Thomas, and we're talking with her, sharing thoughts with her on the channel. And so, we think channel swimming is a lot of fun, and we hope everybody gets a chance to do it, particularly in these COVID times.
Yeah, and the Maui channels are truly very accessible and very doable. I mean, the 15K distance is, when you're being followed by a boat and handed things to eat every 30 minutes, it honestly, a lot of times is a lot easier than going out and training and doing a 10K swim unsupported. So, consider it. It's a fantastic experience. You'll see things that you've never seen before. And unless you put yourself in that situation, very few people do. You're never going to see those things. So it's a very neat experience, and I highly encourage people who have any interest in doing it to put together a little group and give it a go.
I have one more idea too that I want to share with people, is not doing channels, but it's something we've done when we trained for channels, and we did last year, and that is doing point to point here on Oahu. Last year we swam from Makapu'u to Hawaii Kai boat ramp, and as you saw that other picture, we swam from the boat ramp one day to the Alawai. You could just pick two spots. We've gone from Sunset down to Haleiwa before with just a jet ski. And we rented a boat for those other two, or for one of those, we had Ivan follow us for the Makapu'u to Hawaii Kai. It's a lot cheaper boat. It's a lot cheaper day to do it that way. And it is like swimming a channel. So if you want to practice it first, you can practice it close to home without as many logistical issues. And in fact, we're planning, I'm trying to talk these guys into doing some more of those things this year. I haven't been quite successful yet, but when I am, you'll hear about it.
If you want to do one of the Maui Triangle channels, I do have a list of boat pilots that live in Maui. If you need that, you can just contact me and I'll send it to you, because that helps a lot. And people who have done the channel escorted over many, many times, and they know what they're doing.
And then I was also going to just say one more thing too, as far as the mindset goes when you're approaching a channel. Just something if I talk to people about swimming these things, it's a lot of people come from racing backgrounds and they want to go fast, they want to break records, they want to do all these amazing things, and I think it's great to have that ambition. But when you start swimming a channel, there are so many more variables in a road race or other types of things that you've done that you have no control over. And if the currents are bad that day, or it's something that you unexpected, I've swum the same channel in 4 hours. I've swum it, and a different day has taken 8 hours. And it's the same distance, same channel, but the conditions varied. So I think the mindset when you approach something like this is, when you're standing on one shore and you're looking across to where you're going to swim, is simply say, I'm going to swim to that other island. I'm going to swim from Lanai. I'm going to swim to Maui. That's where I'm going to go. It doesn't matter how long it takes. It doesn't matter what the distance ends up being. It's just that you are going to go from point A to point B. and you'll take it 30 minutes at a time, feed, swim, feed, swim, feed, swim, you'll get there. And if you focus on a time like, oh, I got to finish in 5 hours, or the record is 4 hours, I've got to do this. If you're in a bad day where the conditions are bad, you feel poor, something like that, and you get to that point and you're nowhere close to the finish, it is so defeating that having those types of things in your mind beforehand just adds to the complexity of things. So keep it simple. So from point A to point B, that's all you're going to do, no matter how long it takes. So exactly, Michelle. The ocean is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. So yeah, that's my bit of advice on that one. I think I think that's fairly important though too, because if you really truly go in there thinking I'm going to do it in this amount of time, that's a dangerous way to approach a channel. Anything else from anyone? Questions?
This is Francesca. I have another question, of course, which is, what do you do about seasickness or motion sickness?
Oh, great question. That's a really good question. Stefan, I know you have your thoughts on that.
Well, I very candidly, I take Dramamine. I take it, and I read the instructions. I take it that morning when I wake up. And if it's a long swim, I may take another one during the swim. The only time I've ever gotten seasick was actually on a training swim on the backside of the Mokes, when I didn't do any Dramamine and we were getting tossed around. I've had good success, and it's funny because I've been with groups of swimmers where on the first day of the swim, I'll be the only person taking Dramamine, and the next morning they're saying, "Hey, you got any extra?" So
yeah, and
I recommend it.
And it's one of those things too, where I've been around boats enough in my life that I don't get seasick, but at the same time, it's something I can control. So I take Dramamine before anyway, because the worst thing that could happen is find out that, oh geez, I am going to get seasick in the middle of the channel, and I think that would be a miserable way to spend hours swimming. So yeah, it's something you can control. So definitely take Dramamine. What is it? Bonine is the other one too. That's the one that
yeah.
Bonine, yeah.
That Bonine, that's what it is. Yeah, Linda Kaiser recommended that. Other people use a scopolamine patch. They'll put it on there with a bit of Tegaderm behind their ear, and that'll hold that on. And so, yeah, I would highly recommend doing something like that. Even if you don't get seasick, it really isn't going to hurt you. So that is a great question. So who wants to go channeling then? Well, besides you.
So
I'm ready.
on behalf of everybody, I wanted to say thank you guys so much for doing this. I think it was really informative, and it was very nice to be able to do it, albeit virtually. Hopefully we'll be able to do it in person at some point. I didn't ask this beforehand, so I'm sorry if I'm putting you guys on the spot, but for people that are interested who may not know how to reach out to you guys, do you guys want to put email addresses in the chat, or are you open to being contacted if people are interested in more information, or how would you like people to reach out if they have questions that they would like to ask?
I have no problem calling me or emailing me. I'll answer anything or help you as best I can. So I have no problem with that.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right.
I just put my email in chat if anyone wants any additional information. And if you have one of our contacts, we'll be able to get you everyone else's.
Yeah.
So, and then too, Deborah, if you want to send a follow-up with contact information, especially for somebody like Bill, who's got a bunch of information on the boat captains, which will be highly beneficial to you as you start planning your channel attempts. It would be good to have that.
Shall do. So I don't know about anybody else, but I want to hear your best and your worst story about the channel swims you guys have done.
Good question.
The one story that you got out of the water and you said, I'm never doing that again. And then the best redemption that said, oh my God, I want to do this all the time.
Bill, start us off.
Well, I've been very lucky. I just super enjoy it. I wouldn't do it if I didn't enjoy it. I don't have a nightmare story other than getting stung. Never had a shark problem. Been pretty lucky with that. So I don't know. I have some channels I hope to do this summer with my friends. So we'll be out there giving it a go.
Yeah, we'll look to give you a better experience then, Bill.
Exactly.
Boy, my worst experience probably was when we went back to swim Kaiwi for the second time. The jellyfish were so heavy. I stung hundreds of times throughout the night. It was literally like walking around in a dark room with somebody tasing you. It was just miserable for hours on end. But we made it through it, and hey, I was thankful for that. But that's one of those experiences I hope to never repeat. And probably the best experience I had, other than finishing a channel like Kaiwi, was getting to spend 8 hours in the water with a shark and have it follow you around like a puppy dog while you swam. Swimming across Kalakahi, it was just stunning to have this shark 5-6 feet below us, just cruising along as we're swimming. It's matching our speed and just stayed with us for 8+ hours. That was just an amazing experience. And it's one of those things that you just can't ever experience unless you go out and put yourself in that situation and give it a go. So those are probably my worst and my best.
My favorite place in the universe is right in the center of the Maui County islands and those channels. I love stopping there when we feed, just looking all 3 ways and just seeing all 3 islands. It's just such a wonderful place to be. I don't care what the conditions of the water is. I don't care anything else. Just being out there in the middle of those channels is absolutely it's just marvelous. It feels like the right place. I thought it's interesting. I was going to say my worst experience was Kalakahi until Ryan mentioned the shark. The shark was way cool, but I had a miserable swim that day. I was stupid. I swam it poorly. I ran out of calories. I went too hard when I shouldn't have. I was swimming at angles, and it was just a horrible experience. I remember finishing and thinking to myself, oh man, I'm so glad this is over. I'm so glad I was with friends, because I would have climbed on the boat otherwise. It was such a miserable day for me. But my other best experience was actually the same night. It's so funny. The same night that Ryan was getting stung, that was the most glorious night of swimming. It was just so wonderful to watch the moon and be out there. We didn't have much phosphorescence that night, but there's something about swimming in the middle of the water at night with the moon. It grips you. It's really wonderful. So the exact same experiences we had, opposite but the same reactions.
Oh, I'll add one more if I could. After swimming through the night, watching the sunrise.
Oh yeah.
Just I can't even tell you how comforting that is and how amazing that feeling is to finally see the sun and light actually come back up. That was one of those special moments as well.
Yeah. Glorious.
I was gonna add one more thing too. We kind of forgot about it, but I don't consider, I don't know, Bill's pretty religious, but I know I'm not overly religious or spiritual, but one of the things that we do for our channel swims is we bring an offering, just a thank you to the ocean, whatever it is, before we start our swim. Something that we find a lot of times during our swims, you find a neat shell, just something that kind of catches your eye, and then it's kind of cool just to offer it back to the ocean before you start your swim as kind of a thank you or an omiyage, an offering of some sort. But that is something that we do, and I kind of like that tradition.
Yeah.
That sounds like an amazing tradition.
And if you get lucky
Yeah.
on one of our swims, as we
Yes.
got out to the shore to start the swim, Ryan's just walking down the beach, and of course he finds a glass ball, and he gets it and puts it in the boat. It wasn't a big one, but it was pretty cool to see something like that. And
Always wanted to find one.
we're all jealous.
Yeah, that was pretty cool too. Ocean's a cool place, man. Go out there and enjoy it and make the most of it. And boy, we live in, well, I don't know if anyone else is where everyone is from, but if you're in Hawaii, make the most of the ocean because it sure is a wonderful place to be.
Cool.
It is at that. Well, thank you guys again for everything. It's always fabulous to sit and listen to you guys talk and hear your stories and share your experiences. So thank you again. I will figure out where we're going to get everything recorded, or sorry, post the recording, and send something out. But other than that, I think that's about it, unless you guys had anything else that you wanted to add in wrapping up or anything.
Enjoy your
Yeah,
swim
if
tomorrow.
if anyone has any questions, feel free to reach out to us.
Definitely. All right. Well, thank you guys. And everybody else, have a good afternoon. And thank you guys again for doing this. Very much
Thank
appreciated.
you, guys.
Aloha.
Thank you. Thanks for spending your Saturday with us.
Bye.